This webinar panel is maximizing e-resource engagement in public libraries, marketing, training, and outreach strategies that work. And I have a fantastic group of panelists here this afternoon. I will drop the link to our code of conduct in the chat, but we do have a code of conduct just in terms of managing the conversation today. And feel free to explore that when I drop the link in the chat. Just want to start off with some introductions. So Ryder is the branch manager of the Downtown Library for New Hanover County Public Library. We have Susan DeMarco, who is the Children's Services Supervisor at New Hanover County Public Library. Morgan Gleason is the Community Engagement Coordinator at Harnett County Public Library. And Christy Rial is the Deputy Library Director at Cabarrus County Public Library. And I'll have them unmute and introduce themselves as well and share a little bit about their roles in their libraries.
Hey, this is Jimmy at New Hanover County Public Library, and I'm the branch manager here at the main library. I've been at the main library for about, I want to say 12 years, and with New Hanover County Public Library for 18 years in July. And I'm also kind of the go-to person for databases. I used to be called the head of reference, and lots of different title changes and names, but yeah, happy to be here.
All right. Hi, I'm Susan. I'm also at New Hanover County Public Library with Jimmy. Started not too long before him, part-time, working at all of our locations. And then I've been full-time since 2008, started in our adult services and then transitioned over to children's services several years ago. And I work primarily with promoting things to our schools and our parents and just the community at large, but focusing primarily on kids' resources.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for Harnett County. I've been with Harnett County in this position for about a year and a half now. So primarily what I do is marketing all of our resources and programs and that sort of thing through as many channels as I can, kind of getting out into the community. So that's pretty much 100% of my job.
I'm Christy. I'm the Deputy Library Director for Cabarrus County Public Library. I've been with Cabarrus County Public Library for 19 years now. I've been the Deputy Director for a little over 2 years. And in that role, I oversee all of our programming as well as our marketing, outreach, and literacy services for the library system.
Fantastic. And I'll have Jimmy and Susan share a little bit more about their library system.
Great, thank you. Make sure I'm not muted. Okay. Yeah, so at New Hanover County Public Library, we have 4 branches, but soon to be 5 branches or 5 libraries altogether. You'll see on the bottom right of the slide that we've got North Chase Library coming in early 2026. So we're excited about that. And we have a new library replacing our main library downtown. It's the Project Grace. We're still going to call it the main library, but the whole project is Project Grace, where we'll be in the same building with the museum. So we're excited for that. And we should be opening there in October. So busy and exciting time here. And you can see our population and number of staff on the slide as well.
All right. And then as we mentioned, or as I mentioned, I work primarily promoting things, our e-resources to schools. And so our big project is called Class Project, Connecting Libraries and Schools for Success. So we started this in 2017, and this grants students in all of our schools with automatic library accounts, which gives them access to physical books as well as our e-resources. So we've been doing that for a number of years, and it is our public school system as well as 2 private schools, 1 charter school and 1 lab school, which is run through UNC Wilmington. I'm forever reaching out to other schools as well to see what other private and charters want to join us. And so that's been a very successful promotion, a very successful partnership, I should say. The schools are very interested in what we have to offer, and this just makes it very easy for them to promote our e resources and our databases to their families by then also being able to say, and you can automatically use it. Because prior to class project, getting a library account was a barrier to using the e resources. So we do communicate with the schools and families at the beginning of every year. The school system sends out a letter just reminding parents about this partnership. And then we also have a quarterly e newsletter available on our website, and I can talk more about that later. And then, of course, some in person visits to the schools as well. Always helpful for teachers, students, and parents.
So at Harnett County, we have 8 branches across the county with a total of about 60 staff members, part-time and full-time. And we are as North Carolina is a rapidly growing county with around 145,000 residents. And our service area is pretty like rural with some small towns mixed in. We serve several different municipalities. So I'm kind of working with those organizations as well to share what we have. And primarily what I've used for marketing strategies, I make a fair number of brochures and handouts. I find I can fit a lot of information in a single brochure, so I will make a brochure about just about anything. We also have email newsletters that we send out that we've started this year that have been very successful, and we have a whole like new patron campaign. So when someone signs up for a library card, we, instead of like bombarding them with information, which we kind of also do when they sign up for a card, we send them over kind of 8 weeks of more emails as well, which has been very, very helpful. And then social media content, especially photos. I have a pretty great staff who are really great about sending me photos from programs, which has been awesome. So I try to take those and use the caption to also share information about the library. And then just getting out in the community and going to school events, community events. If someone says, hey, can you have a table? I do my best to be there with that information. So those have been the kind of strategies that I've been using so far.
So Cabarrus County Library is right, this is the county just above Charlotte. We have 6 branches serving rural and suburban areas. We just opened our 6th branch back in March. That's the Afton branch, which is in the bottom right corner. We have 93 staff members. Our population as of 2020 was 225,000. I am sure that has grown. Cabarrus County is in the top 5 fastest growing counties in North Carolina. So we've been seeing quite the influx of people. We have a variety of different branches from, a storefront branch in Midland to, our 2 new facilities that we just opened, Afton and Mount Pleasant, which are combination libraries and active living centers. So we work with our parks department out of those buildings. And some of the things that have worked for us have been highly topical social media campaigns. So you can see in the bottom corner there, we have a post about people being interested in learning Mandarin. This we posted around the time in January where everybody was freaking out about TikTok going away, and some people were wanting to go over to other apps that were similar that required you to use Mandarin. So we put out there that, hey, we have a resource where you can learn new languages if you want to. So we've gotten a lot of engagement with posts like that, just trying to tie into something, topical or pop culture related to let people know about e-resources. We also do a lot of events. One of the big things we've been doing over the last couple of years has been doing library card signups at local high schools during lunch periods, so that those students can get signed up for library cards, and we give information about our e-resources. We do have one school system in the county, the Kannapolis City School System, where everybody automatically gets a card that allows them to access e-resources, but our county school system, we've been having trouble getting them on board with that. So we're doing what we can to get those students library cards. We've also done a lot of communication with our lead media coordinator for the school systems to try to get involved
Hey,
with
Chuck.
different classes.
Good. How are you?
And
Hey, please make, sorry, one sec. Please make sure that you're muted. Sorry, Christy.
we've done classroom visits and sort of librarian in residence type things. Our community services coordinator spent a week at one of the local middle schools to help students with projects. We've done a lot with some of our private schools and charter schools who do not have media coordinators in providing that library service to them. And then we've done some program promotions. So we make sure when we're doing our programs, we tie in those e-resources if people want to learn more.
Thank you so much. So we'll dive into the discussion now. Our first question is, public libraries juggle many roles to serve their communities. How do you find time to promote e-resources? What challenges have you faced? And why is this work valuable? So we'll have Christy leading off this question, and then Susan, Morgan, and Jimmy will follow.
So we've really, in Cabarrus County, made time and prioritized our e-resources, especially coming out of the pandemic. So, like pretty much everybody, we were closed for a period of time, and we realized that a lot of our patrons weren't aware of the online services that we had. So since then, we've created outreach and marketing positions so we can prioritize getting the word out about all of our services, but also about our e-resources. We're always hearing from our community members and even other county departments that, hey, we didn't know you did X, Y, and Z. So it's continuing to show us that we need to push this. And it improves our staff time in the long run in promoting these e-resources, because we are helping to empower and educate our patrons so that they're not needing to lean on us as much. And so that's a big reason why we prioritize. We're trying to make it easy on staff. Our marketing coordinator really tries to help staff develop bookmarks and things that they can have available at their programs if it's something that we don't already have, like an NC Live template for, and just encouraging staff to make those promotions at programs and when they're talking with patrons. I think one of our challenges is staff knowledge of the resources. We've hired a ton of new staff over the last year. Last year we had a little over 60 staff members, and now we have 93. So it's been a big jump, and it's not always easy to let those new staff know what we have, especially since many of them are not coming from a library background or maybe haven't had North Carolina library experience. So letting them know what we have available through NC Live. So, trying to, when we're promoting things, catching that attention of our patrons and making them feel entertained rather than lectured to or sold something. I know, sometimes we have patrons who just really are leery of e-resources and, think we're trying to pawn them off on something. So that's another challenge, is trying to spread the word without, running into that wall where patrons just like, oh no, I don't want to do anything like that. And value. So, we see these e-resources as, reminding patrons that we're not just about books or children's programs, that we're really there to support them across the board in what they're wanting to achieve, especially something that's something we're trying to do with our school system, is showing them, look, we can support you. We can help you provide resources to your students that maybe you do not have the resources available for. And, developing those relationships with our community is very important.
Okay, so I'm going to just touch on a couple of things, and then I know Jimmy will have a lot more to add. But as far as finding the time to promote the e-resources, I try to encourage all of the children's staff members to really make it just a part of what they already do. So instead of thinking of e-resources as being completely separate, whenever a student or a child or a family is in front of you and they need help on a science project or they're doing some research, get them to the right Dewey area, but then also show them that science database at the same time. So just trying to make it a part of the book as well, um, a part of the book guiding. Then when you're adding that on, it's not as daunting. And then as far as challenges, I feel like one of our biggest challenges is a kind of a good challenge to have. We have so many resources, it can seem overwhelming. So I know we as librarians, library staff, we get very excited about all of our offerings, but then sometimes we don't know where to start. And I know we'll talk about that a little more. So I think that's a big challenge, is that there's so much out there, and then sometimes we feel like we're the only ones that know about it, and we don't want to keep it a secret. So we don't want our e-resources to be a secret. So just continuing to work to make sure everyone knows about the e-resource that is important to them. And not every patron is going to need every e-resource that we have. So connecting the right patron or the right customer with the right resource.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what's been said about like the number of resources kind of being overwhelming when you sit down to think about promoting your digital resources in general. Um, and I think that kind of baked into that challenge and finding the time and that sort of thing is that one of the blessings, like we have a lot of them, but they're also kind of like stagnant. So for example, transparent language is going to be transparent language in a year. So, setting aside that time for various resources. I create content, but that content I use again and again and again. Where it's relevant, or that brochure or something like that. So I try to set aside time and like pick a resource, but it definitely can feel overwhelming. I think one other thing that I find a challenge to overcome when communicating things is that it's a free digital resource, and I don't think that patrons put a lot of value on that. There's a lot of free apps out there, free websites and all this stuff, and they don't, one, trust that it's free all the way through, or two, trust that it's a valid resource, something that they're going to benefit from and not have to fight, like an old website or something like that. So kind of getting excited. Like I'll be at the desk, and if someone is asking about something, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, do you like audiobooks? We have Libby, like we have this, or we have all of these other resources. And so I get excited with them about it too, and try to share that. But I think that that is the most helpful, and then other staff are hearing it as well. So yeah.
Great. And I'll also talk about some of this in question 2. So I'll talk a little bit about some other things with it. So part of what I'll talk about in question 2 is that we created a strategic plan that we launched in July 2023, and we actually incorporated this type of thing into the strategic plan with some strategic initiatives. And so out of that came a social media group team led by our technology and marketing librarian, Tiffany. And so they meet and plan out what resources are we going to share on social media this month, and they plan out. They don't want to bombard people with social media about databases so that people won't pay attention to it. And I think they do about 1 per week is what they've come to as the sweet spot. Yeah, so there's other things with our strategic plan, which also I think Christy talked about at programs, making sure that we're talking about an online database, and then we give out a survey. Did you learn about a library resource? And find out if they did actually learn something new about the library from that program. So that's a couple things that we do to find time. We have it built into our work with our strategic plan.
All right, and we'll move on to question 2. How have you engaged staff in promoting e-resources to patrons? What training or support have you provided to ensure that staff feel confident recommending and assisting with these resources? And Jimmy will start things off, and then Morgan, Christy, and Susan will follow.
Yeah, so if you go to the next slide, if possible, there's our strategic plan, a little picture of it. And the target that I'm kind of leading is to increase the number of library card holders who utilize online databases remotely by 10% annually. And it's a hard target to reach, but so we came up with some strategies to try to reach that target. And an interesting thing about this target is I've always tried to increase the usage, but now we're trying to increase the number of patrons who use it, which should increase usage as well. So some of the strategies are staff education. And one of the things I do with staff education, I of course send out emails to webinars and that type of thing. But we also started a library resource of the month that we post every month for library staff. So librarians and paraprofessionals, I'm sorry, will post one each month. And so we schedule out a year and say, okay, you'll post this month, you post the next month. And we don't tell them which ones to post about, but we say, don't post one that's already been talked about in the last year. And we have people answer questions such as, who might find this useful? And what can you email articles from it, that sort of thing. And so librarians and paraprofessionals can post something that they're really excited about, or they can take the time to learn a new database and then post it. And so we ask that all the staff read those. That's on Teams. We do the same thing actually to the whole New Hanover County. All the employees of New Hanover County get a post that's a little bit different because it's not reaching out to library employees. And we get a lot of excitement from that. You know, it's kind of like when you post on Facebook and you see those likes and hearts and things. When you see it on Teams after making that post, it's exciting. But what really is exciting is when right after I post one of those, I get several employees who sign up for a library card. Um, so that's exciting. Other things that we're doing to increase the number of users, we streamlined our A to Z list. So we used to list all the databases on our A to Z list that were in ProQuest Central. And we're like, oh, that's a little much. So we looked at that and we just listed ProQuest Central and a couple individual ones that we think public library patrons would really like to use. And then brochures that we've talked about before. We did some really nice brochures that I think Devin will share in the chat, and or she'll send them out later. And some of the things we do with those brochures are to, of course, have them on display, and hand them out at the reference desk when someone comes up and asks a question about, for instance, legal forms. We have Gale legal forms. We find the brochure with Gale legal forms and give it to them. But also, say somebody puts a book on hold for the SAT or the GRE, we'll go ahead and put one of those brochures into the book that they've requested. So, and sometimes we wrote a note on it. We thought you might be interested in learning Express Library, to get that to them, because it's a great resource besides just using a book. And then a couple other things that we're doing with this strategic initiative we're in the process of right now is we're rebranding databases, and it's something that, you know, we've kicked around for years. What do we call databases? We call them e-resources, databases. So we went and looked at a lot of library websites, and my strategic group, my committee, helped look at them, and we talked about what we liked on websites, and I think we're going towards research and learning. We'll still have an A to Z database list, but we'll have research and learning instead of databases, which is what we have on our website, and then break those down into little subsections, which will always bring you to the A to Z database list. But hoping that helps. And yeah, I talked about website changes with that, bringing people to subsets of the databases. So if they click on research and learning, and then they click on legal or something like that, they can find Gale legal forms. So yep, that's what we're working on. The brochures, oh yeah, I talked about that already. They're created by reference staff. They were introduced to staff. One thing we did was put QR codes on them, and we said, oh, we'll track the number of scans that we have. We haven't done a real good job of doing that, but it's something that we can go back and look at. In my mind, I'd see people using these resources more on computers than on cell phones. But we do have that we can track. So yeah, thank you.
So here in Harnett County, we have several trainings available. I try to share. I know NC Live has a great, I believe it's on YouTube, video series of like intros to all of their stuff, and I've tried to share that with staff, and that's something that we've discussed kind of doing more as well. But one other thing that I do is whenever I generate something for the public, be it like a post or especially like brochures and stuff, I send that out to, not only do I print it and make sure it gets to the desk, but I send it out to all staff because it's promoting it for the public. So hopefully the public will start asking questions, but also kind of should have enough information to get staff curious. So I kind of use that promotional material internally as well. So.
So yes, we have a lot of promotional material as well, things that we've either gotten directly from NC Live or things that our in-house staff have developed. We've done a lot of bookmarks lately because we found that people are more willing to take a small bookmark than a brochure or a flyer, and it's a little bit easier to take those out and about as well. We regularly share anything that comes out from NC Live about training. I forward that on to everybody in the system. I know we have several staff that are going to the NC Live conference next month. So I'm pretty excited about that because it's in Charlotte and it's really close. So hopefully they'll bring a lot of that knowledge back. We've also done some e-resource exercises during our staff training days. So we have 2 staff training days a year where we actually close to the public and do training. And I've set up exercises for people to work through. We did one for novelist where we had staff break up into pairs and had to do readers advisory for each other. And then just exploring, I would give them a list of questions and be like, okay, here's questions that are geared towards like children's homework help. What resources would you use to answer these questions? And those have been a big hit. I'm hoping we can do more of those in the future because it really helps cement oh yeah, we not only did we get told about this resource, we actually went through and had to use it as if we were a patron.
So I am stealing that for our next children's team retreat. Thank you very much, Christy. But one thing that we have done in the past, I haven't done a lot of it lately, but whenever my children's team meets quarterly or monthly, sometimes even depending on the year, um, but I have pulled up different databases and kind of used them together just to make sure everyone knows about it. I've also, after retreats, I've given homework to go and explore a database of your choice. Just kind of pick one that you think you would like to share with patrons. And then I think creating that space or that dialogue where we know we can go to each other with questions so that there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's okay that we've had novelists for years and you still don't know how to use it. Go ahead and ask, and we'll be happy to show you. And to know that things do change and updates do come out, and it's okay to take that time to keep exploring again and again. So I think just knowing that we can go to each other with questions is really helpful.
All right, we are going to jump into that third question. So, what feedback or advice would you give to a member library that is beginning to market e-resources and is struggling with getting started? And so Susan will lead this question, and then Christy, Morgan, and Jimmy will follow.
All right. Well, a couple of things. One thing that I alluded to in the beginning is really not trying to market everything all at once. That's when people get overwhelmed. So, really picking a couple, I'd say 1 to 3, that you really want to hone in on and know those well and really market those. And we market those to the schools that way. I don't send out every database that we have. I pick a couple that are highlighted on our website that I think would be the most useful. So that's really important. Another thing that I'll mention, when I first started here full time at New Hanover County Library, I was our business librarian. So I had nothing to do with children, but I worked helping people who wanted to start businesses. So I went to all the meetings on how to start a business with SCORE and the SBA. And I really got a lot of good advice from them, or a lot of tips that I keep going back to on marketing. And they always drilled in, don't don't focus on price. Don't talk about money. Talk about the value. Talk about what people are getting from it. So really start with, oh, you're having trouble with your homework. Okay, this is really going to help you out. And then make it simple. Engage the person when you're talking with them, so that it's not all you talking. Kind of see where they are. Um, So start with that. Start with what people actually need to know, and then also start with a built-in audience. So if you are going to a school or something like that, those are the people that you know. So if you're going to a science class, bring your science resources, promote those heavily, as opposed to just throwing the resources out there and hoping that everyone will come and love them as much as you do. Um, and then also, I think we've mentioned this a little bit too. If you yourself are a user of the resources, that's really going to help when you're marketing, because you are going to know what you're excited about and you're going to work that angle. And then getting people who have nothing to do with the library look at some of your social media or some of your posts or some of your brochures is really helpful. Sometimes I share things with friends and family who have don't know anything about it. So if they look at my brochure or my post and they still don't know, well, what is this, Susan? How does this work? What are you talking about? Then I know I haven't done a good job. So getting feedback from others before you put it out there to the community is good. People outside of the library. So I think those are the big ones. Pick something, focus on it, focus on the value, and go from there.
So, jumping off of what Susan said, yes, familiarize yourself with the resources. Make sure you know what they can do, because that's going to make it a lot easier to market. Don't be afraid to experiment, especially with those social media posts. We've tried a lot of different things to see what gets engagement and you know, what stats we're getting after those. My community services coordinator really recommends finding just one teacher or school librarian to start with who is passionate about public libraries. And a lot of times that can lead to more partnerships through that school system. I know one of the media coordinators that she had worked with a lot is now the head media coordinator for our school system. So just starting with that one connection in that one school has now given us a lot more exposure. We also, try to provide our marketing materials, like our bookmarks and brochures, to other places. So we're not just keeping them in the library, you're not just using them in outreaches, but like leaving them with media coordinators so they can have them in the school library is very helpful in making that connection even when we are not there.
So, and it kind of depends on the time you have, but if you're just getting started, the first thing I would do is create content that you can use over and over and over again, and kind of look at where you're getting the most communication with people. I think social media posts are great, and a lot of those can grow out of other content like flyers and stuff. But with a lot of digital resources, the times that I feel like I get people on board the most are when I go to events and I'm there and I can talk to them, or I'm at the desk. And so just making sure that, especially if you have limited time, the initial content you make is going to be most useful in promoting it. So like we have a digital resources brochure. You don't see me without it. Like it's at every single event I go to, so that even if it's not necessarily related to the event, I can give it to that person. So creating content that's evergreen that you can use over and over and over again, and kind of the initial focus being on what are you going to use the most, whether that's 5 to 10 social media posts that you have posting. If you do 10 social media posts, that's 10 weeks of posts. You can do the same 10 posts the next 10 weeks. So or if it's a handout or something like that, just considering how you're getting it to people and where you find that most effective.
I agree with all of that, and just keeping in mind that NC Live has some great promotional materials, and you can also reach out to your own vendors and get promotional materials from them. A lot of times the vendors will want you to put their database front and center on your web page, and you know, we have too many to do that all the time, but they can be very helpful. Another thing that I find is helpful is to give real life examples of how you might have used the database, or you know someone else has used the database. So I personally have used tutor.com and Learning Express with my son, especially in middle school when he was struggling with some subjects, and I give examples of that, and people are like, oh, that's good. It puts more that, you know, that you're not just leaving them with the name of a database, but how I used it or how someone else used it and found it helpful. I think I do that in outreach and just in talking to patrons.
I totally forgot to share this fantastic slide that Susan put together for New Hanover County. But
Yeah, so I think that I pretty much talked about everything on there, but I guess the one other thing to mention is I do love QR codes now. I didn't I did not love QR codes when they first came out, but now that they're so easy and everyone can use their camera, I think they're the way to go. And we used to think about trying to direct people to our website and then tell them how to get to the individual resource. And now, whenever possible, we try to do a direct link to the resource because people don't like extra clicks. So, any extra barriers you can eliminate to get people into resources faster, I think works really well.
right, fantastic. So we have our final question before we jump into Q&A. So this question is, what tools and strategies have been most effective in boosting e-resource usage at your library? How do you use social media and maybe some other tools to reach patrons and share e-resources? And Morgan is going to kick things off, and then we have Jimmy, Susan, and Christy.
So we use, I'm really big, I love my digital resource brochure, which I have the next slide has a photo of that. And it's also linked on this slide there. So I love having something that I can hand to people. It has kind of a list of digital resources, but there's also kind of a guide for some of our more popular ones, including like a step-by-step guide for Libby. And so that's kind of at all of our desks and something that I take everywhere to any event. That way, when I'm chatting and someone's just like, if I'm at a school event and you need help, we can talk about Learning Express, and it's something to give them as a reminder of that conversation. Something else that we started this past year was a new patron email campaign. So when someone signs up, we use a service called Patron Point, and they basically get funneled into an 8-week email series. And so each email is designed, some of them are about our programs, but we have a couple in there that are specifically about our digital resources, so that those patrons who get a library card and then you never see them again, know like the resources that they have available to them kind of in their inbox. And so that's something new that we're also kind of playing around with and kind of figuring out some of the best ways to use that. But the new patron email campaign has been very successful, and people have actually been very, very receptive to it, and use it, like, because we get all the data as well, like open rates and click rates and stuff like that, which is really cool and very useful. You can kind of see what people are interested in. And then we use Student Access, or we call it Student Access, which is basically we partner with the schools to allow students to have a digital library card, essentially. So they have access to all of our digital resources. And I talk about it and I offer to go to schools, but what I found to be the most helpful is I made a student access presentation that that's just a template that I can in Canva, that I can email the template link to media coordinators, and they can then kind of present on it in their school, or it's information that they can share. I found that media coordinators tend to be the best people at kind of spreading this information. So I do try to give them that presentation. And so having that in my back pocket is very helpful as well to kind of let people know what we have access to. And then just the community school and event participation. Going to some of our big festivals and stuff has been very helpful. Like that's where I end up talking to people who aren't in the library about what they have access to from like their community resources. So then in the next slide, because that's all kind of not social media, I kind of talk a little bit more about how we use social media specifically. And the biggest thing for me, and I think I've mentioned it a couple of times, is like evergreen social media content. I do not want to make a new slide about Libby or Transparent Language or our career resources, every few months. So what I make, I kind of put a little bit more time into, and I try to make enough of it that it can kind of rotate through throughout the year. Because while you're looking at your page all the time, your patrons are not. So if you post the same thing a month later, no one's going to call you on it. So making those, keeping those. And as some people have mentioned, a lot of our vendors have like digital like slides and brochures, flyers, folders, social media posts already created. So Libby and Transparent Language both have like some of the best, and I've linked those there. And when it comes to like vendor things that I've seen, so pull from there. And then NC Live also has a like great resource and plethora of images that you can use and handouts. I took some of the handouts and have kind of like taken parts of them and put those into brochures. So I'm not reinventing that wheel. So use that pre-created content. And if you have a vendor that isn't using that, reach out to them and see if they can generate something, because they want your patrons to use these databases as much as you want them to. So use that. The other thing that we use is we have a link tree, and instead of linking in the bio on our social media like directly to our website, we have the link tree. So basically it's a list of links. One is our website, but it allows us to kind of highlight stuff. So right now, if you click on our link tree, it's highlighting our summer reading program. But that's something that we can swap out, and based on what we're doing could be, learn a new language or check out ebooks and resources. So that's something that we can kind of like change and update and be a touchstone for people. And the last thing is I'm pretty involved in our local Facebook groups, and I share stuff like that with those community groups as well. Facebook has really moved towards like a more community group lens. So kind of sharing some of those and answering people's questions. Like people ask questions of like, where can I do X, Y, and Z in the county? And if it's something the library can help with, I'll reply and be like, hey, the library can help, and here's a resource for that. So those are some of the highlights.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear about Patron Point, because we are just launching Patron Point and we're excited to send out those welcome emails. So that's great to hear that it's worked well for you. I kind of mentioned before, we have a social media team who meets and decides what they're gonna post. I think the tools and strategies have been most effective in boosting e-resource usage. I think it's word of mouth. I really do. And that's one of the things, if we get out and talk to a group and the group is excited about a resource or resources we shared, we're like, make sure you tell your friends, make sure you tell your family, tell them, share this, because word of mouth is huge and helping people find things, which is kind of happening with Morgan going on to Facebook and social media and answering questions, which I think is really cool too.
Yeah, so also I do a lot in different Facebook groups as well, just like groups that I'm in personally as a mom in the community. So anytime you can drop links in to just let people know this is what's happening at the library, you can use this resource. One that our community got very excited about was ABC Mouse. We didn't realize how many families were subscribing to that and didn't realize they could use it through the library. And then as the kids get older, of course, there's more and more in NC Live for them. Another thing that we are using is Beanstack for our summer promotions and reading promotions throughout the year, but this is our second summer using Beanstack, and so we typically do a couple of activities in there to encourage them to try out a resource and then get a prize or earn a badge. So tying it into summer reading is a really good thing to do. Um, And yes, once you get a certain teacher or someone else who's passionate about the resource to share it, that's when you really see that usage go up. Every time I've gone to a high school or any classroom and directly taught a group how to use an e-resource, you can see the teacher assigns everyone to use it, or the kids voluntarily use it, and then the resource goes up. The statistics go up. So those are working for us.
So one of the big strategies that's been very effective for us, because I know when Devin had originally reached out to me, she had said that we were showing, big usage of SIRS in Cabarrus County. And so one of the things that's really helped us with that is in-person classroom visits, especially if we can do a series of visits. So Jenny, our community outreach coordinator, has been doing these, especially with some of our private schools, actually going into the classroom and doing like an introduction to the public library resources, and then coming back the next week and doing a demonstration of those resources. And then, in session 3, coming back and doing a recap of all the resources and then practicing with real research projects that the students are doing. She's done this with like middle school and high school classrooms. So it's almost like what a librarian would do on a college campus with freshmen, just going through and really assisting them with those research projects. So that's been a big reason why we've seen a lot more use of some of those resources than we had in the past. For social media, some of the big things that have worked out for us is identifying times that we're getting more engagement on the page. So we've identified like mid-morning on Monday as being a good time for us to get engagement. Probably catching people on their first break after their morning flurry of activity, coming back to work after the weekend or whatever. So, trying to find those times when people are more likely to engage with our page. And then we just, like I said, I think in the introduction, we do try to link our promotion of e-resources to jokes, memes, or just extremely topical references. We try to share things from the NC Live pages, from Libby pages, any other resource pages that we have. Because if we can just share those things, then we don't have to develop anything new.
Nice. I feel like there's a common theme here of just having evergreen things to share, repurposing stuff that's existed, maybe refreshing materials, but really not trying to invent the wheel so much. Um, we have here time for Q&A. So folks, if you want to submit questions in the chat to our panelists, feel free to share things in the chat. I'll give folks some time for that. I guess one question that I have for panelists is how do you kind of approach interactions, or how does your staff kind of approach interactions with patrons who are very tech averse, and you know that they may be interested, but they might feel a little overwhelmed or kind of bristle at like the idea of, creating an account in Learning Express Library or trying out a new database?
Show and tell. But yeah, there are those patrons that, no, I want a book. But just kind of reassuring them that, this is a reputable resource that, Learning Express isn't going to share your information. And yeah, that showing them and telling them.
Yeah, I think walking them through it is one. And then the other thing I try to do is let them know at the end of it that, hey, if you need help, you can come into any of our locations. We have a book a librarian, so you could set up a time with somebody. Or if you're at home and you're using an e-resource, call us. Like that can be your first step. We can kind of walk through a fair number of these things over the phone with you. So kind of as I'm kind of holding their hand through this, telling them how they can get further assistance. Like we're not just going to leave them hanging. And they may or may not need to come in at all. Like we might be able to help them over the phone.
For me, whenever I'm talking with students, particularly high school students, I usually say things like, this is just as easy as using Google, only it's approved by your teachers and you'll get a better grade.
All right, we have a question in the chat from Kathy asking, do you find brochures, business cards, or flyers are most useful or informative for promotion of resources? Do you find it helpful to hand someone something to take with them?
I do find it useful to hand somebody something to take with them, because they're not going to remember the name of the resource you're recommending to use. So on our brochures, I'll circle the one and say, you might also try these. Or we have a handout that kind of we can write in the resource as well and hand it to them.
Yeah, I would say it's very helpful, especially when you're in some of those like tabling events where you're having a ton of people come up, and you're not really getting, the same amount of one-on-one attention as you would be giving in the branch. So it is very helpful to have that and be able to just hand those out to patrons instead of having to hand sell everything.
Yeah, I love my brochures. And I feel like you can fit information in them. I will say I was fortunate and we have invested in a brochure folding machine. So it will fold trifold brochures. It is the best thing, I think, that we have purchased, in my opinion. But it's very nice to have something to give people. so that they can kind of refer back to it. And we do that for digital resources, programs, and that sort of thing. So I try really hard to like not make 20 brochures and jam pack it with as much information as possible. But I find them very useful.
We have Calvin asking in the chat, what's the brand name of the folding machine for brochures?
I would have to look. I'm not sure, but we did get it off Amazon. I can see if I can find the link and send it to Devin to add an email.
Sounds good. I want to share, we did get some questions in registration asking, love this panel, this topic, but do you have one for academic libraries? And we actually do have a panel on e-resources engagement and marketing for academic libraries coming up on June 16th. That will be added to our training calendar soon. So if we have any academic library attendees here today, know that that's coming up with academic librarians from our member libraries in North Carolina. I'm just going to check real quick and see if we have any other pressing questions that might have been private message to me or came up in registration, but feel free, folks, to, I know we're just a minute over time, but if you have any questions, feel free to send those in.
Well, I'll just add something quickly about academic libraries and librarians. So for several years, the public library did partner with our community college and our university, UNC Wilmington, to go out to high schools. So we put together this like 20-minute presentation to talk to seniors in high school about how e-resources work in the public library and then how they were going to need them in college. So that was a nice transition to get the students to see you're using it now, go ahead and use it now. It's going to benefit you later, and then you're going to have even more when you're in college.
I have a question that came in from registration about marketing to an audience with a wide range of familiarity already with your online resources. Does anybody on the panel have advice for that for patrons who already might be familiar with your offerings?
I think it's always helpful to add more things of like, did you know you can do this? Like I know a lot of our patrons are very familiar with Libby, for example. And so sometimes we do try to add in things like, did you know you could add tags? Did you know Libby just did a new filtering where you can filter to just see the first in a series or standalone books. So I think having that value added of, hey, you may have already used this, but did you know they have this feature, or have you tried, this advanced function?
Yeah, just to kind of get patrons who already might be users to maybe see some tips and tricks and get the most out of their access. Fantastic. All right, folks. Well, we're a little bit over time. We'll wrap things up, but expect a follow-up email from me tomorrow afternoon with the link to the recording, the slides, links to some of the resources shared in the chat, the brochures, and then a follow-up survey. So please feel free to share future webinar topics, any ideas that you have for professional development. The NC Live training program takes that into account, and we try to offer things that are as relevant and timely as possible for our member libraries. But thank you all so much to our fantastic panelists for sharing their incredible knowledge with us and for spending your Tuesday afternoon with us. But have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Devin.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.